Steve, this is your first solo feature writing credit, and I wondered, why did you decide to go solo on this film? There's COVID.
No, it was one of those situations where the focus and the concentration was there. I mean, usually I'm doing 3 or 4 things at the same time. So I usually have a co-writer and so forth and whatnot. But this time, I because of circumstances, I could just focus and get it done. And what was great about it, people were, because of the circumstances of the times, people were available on the phone. I could get them, and therefore research and everything else was sort of starting then. So I just got into it, and there was a rhythm, and I just continued. So I was just very excited to do that.
At what point in that process did you think this might be something that you could work on with Tim and the guys at Working Title?
Well, I think, as far as Working Title is concerned, again, I just, they're obviously a great company, a great production company. They're British, and I think somehow I wanted to sort of be with a British production company because we were shooting in UK and the sensibilities, and that was proven right. I mean, Tim's history with the Second World War with his father, and Eric, everyone has a story about it. So therefore, it was very it felt like a mission to make this picture, because we hadn't had a situation where we had a story like this before, delving into war in Britain. And yeah, it was just one of those hand-in-glove situations where I was just grateful.
And Tim, it's as we know, it's very difficult to make a good war film, and it's just as difficult to make a good film that's set in London. And you've done both of these things before, and I wondered, where do you start building a film like this to make sure that you can sort of deal with the scope of it?
You get Steve McQueen to start with,
Yes.
which obviously, because he's a world-renowned director, it means that you can get great resources. And with those great resources, we were able to get fantastic people to work on the picture. Adam Stockhausen as our production designer, Yorick as a cameraman, Adam Sumner actually as our first AD, who was hugely responsible for some of the bigger scenes. And when you have a mise-en-scène like that of people who are absolutely brilliant at what they do, you can build something extraordinary. But the amazing thing about making a wartime film in London is you have to invent every square centimetre of it, because none of it exists anymore.
Saoirse, this is a performance to me that is so physical. You can sort of see like a stiffness in your character's shoulders, and the way she walks is so heavy. And it sort of like personifies this like get on with it attitude that people had at the time, and I guess is like a stereotype for British people now. So I wondered if you, and also your accent is like a very specific sort of like East London accent that doesn't really exist anymore. So I wondered if you could speak a little bit about how you built this performance from the ground up.
Yeah, well, going into it, I thought, oh, okay, I think, I know how to do a Cockney accent. I feel like every actor who's not from London can very easily slip into that. But I realised very quickly from working with the dialect coach that there was this sort of vintage, as you say, sound that we don't actually have anymore. It doesn't exist, which is what I find so fascinating about accents anyway, is that they kind of have a shelf life in a way because they keep evolving. So that was a really great gateway into the character, actually, because what I found really fascinating about the way the working classes spoke is that it was very clear where they were from, but they also had this effectiveness to their sound because they wanted to appear to be more sort of put together and proper, so that sort of gives you an idea of the world that you're a part of, the sort of social world that you're a part of. And it was incredibly helpful to be working with Naomi Don, who did the hair and makeup, and Jacqueline Dern, who did costume, because there always had to be this armour, I think, for the women. They always put an effort into their appearance, no matter what they were going through in their day-to-day. And so that was just a really helpful little tool that I had, I suppose, through the whole shoot.
And Steve, I guess this is a film that's really invested in children and the impact that war has on them, and just their interactions with the world and how that shapes who they end up being. I wondered, what does offering a film through a child's point of view offer to a narrative filmmaker that's maybe distinct from doing it with an adult?
Well, it makes us look again at the world. It makes us refocus our gaze. I always think of one of my my daughter was about 2 years old, and she, you know, it's autumn now in Europe. But I remember when she showed me a leaf. Daddy, it's a leaf, it's a leaf. Yeah, it's a leaf. Oh, yeah, it's a leaf. It's a leaf. It refocuses your gaze on what's right. At what point did we start to compromise? At what point